She was standing in the doorway pointing at the sleeping mat, and my knees were bending on their own, and I understood, too late, that my own mother had been feeding this thing for decades. Welcome to Untold Lore's Face to Face, Part 3 of 4. I did not turn around. I am telling you this clearly, I did not turn around to look at it. Because some old and animal part of me understood that if I turned around and looked at it directly, the choice would be over. Instead I walked forward, into the inner room. I did not choose to do this. I want to make that plain. My legs moved and I walked toward the sleeping mat, and I told myself with every step that I was doing it to get away from the thing behind me. The smell was worse inside the room, heavy enough to press on my chest. I stepped onto the sleeping mat and I stood there and I waited to feel something grab me from behind. Nothing grabbed me. I turned around slowly because I had run out of ways to not do it. She was in the doorway, standing in the open doorway, framing herself against the dark corridor behind her. I will describe what I saw because I think it is important that someone else knows. She was the height my mother had been. Same slight curve to the shoulders. But the skin was wrong. The color was wrong, pale gray instead of warm brown, pulled tight over her face so that the bones of her cheeks pushed against the inside. The veins under the skin were dark, not blue the way veins normally look, dark, almost black. And her eyes. I need to stop here. I need to be exact. Where her eyes should have been there were two spaces that were darker than the rest of the room. Not black like an eye is black. Black like a hole in a wall is black. Light did not reflect in them. Light went into them and stopped. She was not looking at me. She was aimed at me, the way a door is aimed at a room. Her mouth was open. Her teeth were gray and the gaps between them were dark. And she was still humming. I could feel the hum before I could hear it. It moved through the floor into my feet. It moved into my legs and up into my chest, and I realized with complete calm, the kind of calm that means your mind has simply stopped arguing with what is happening, that I had been in this room before. I had slept in this room before. As a child, this had been my room, and I remembered, standing on that sleeping mat, that my mother had told me never to sleep in this room after I turned 7. She had moved me to the outer room herself. She had never explained why. I had been 7 years old, and you do not question your mother when she is carrying your pillow. She raised her right hand slowly. Her fingers were too long. I knew they were too long before I could count the extra joints, but I counted them anyway because my mind needed something to do. 4 joints on each finger instead of 3. The extra joint bent backward when the others bent forward. She was pointing at me. Not at me, I understood then. At the mat beneath my feet. She pointed at the sleeping mat and she hummed, and I felt my knees start to bend. I fought that. I am telling you, I fought it. Every part of me that had a name pushed back against my knees bending. My knees bent anyway. They bent slowly and without pain, and I went down and I sat on the mat, and I looked up at her standing in the doorway, and her face had not changed. Then I understood the last thing. The thing that reordered everything I thought I knew about this house. She was not doing this to me. She was doing this for the 7th time. To the 8th person to sleep in this room, and she had been doing it for decades before I was born. The first person she had done it to had not been a stranger. It had been her. My mother had not moved me to the outer room when I was 7. She had moved me out of its reach. She had lived in this house her entire life, knowing what was in this room, keeping it fed with strangers while keeping her own child safe. And when she died, there was nothing left to feed it, except me. I was on my back on the mat. I do not remember lying down. I was lying on the mat and I could not get up, and the thing that wore my mother's face was bending over me. And I finally understood the one thing that might save me. But I had left it in my jacket pocket, and my arms would not move. That's it for Part 3. Follow Untold Lores for Part 4. Like and subscribe for daily stories.